Today we're going to talk about writing and graphing linear equations and inequalities. This is going to be real quick. Just got some formulas here for you to look at: the slope formula, the slope-intercept form, and point-slope formula. And these are the three things that you're mainly going to use when you're given information to try and graph a line. So first you have the slope formula. We talked about that in the last video. And this is just m, which is usually represented the slope, and that is the change in y's over the change in the x's, or the difference in the y over the difference in the x, or rise over run. There's all kinds of ways you can say it. Just make sure your y's are on top and your x's are on the bottom. And this is if you're given 2 points, and those 2 points, would be x1, y1 and x2, y2, and they could be any 2 points like 2, 3 and 1, 4. Just any 2 points. You would use those points and plug them into your formula, and you would get a slope. And that slope you're going to use for slope-intercept and point-slope form. If you're given a specific point like an intercept, or if you're given the slope, then you can plug that straight into slope-intercept form, which we also sometimes call y equals mx plus b form, because it is the most popular. It's the easiest to graph, it's easiest to work with, and you can just plot a point and count out the slope. So when you plot this y-intercept, you'll usually see it as a point like 0, 2. That would tell me that the y-intercept is 2, because at the y, when it crosses the y-axis, your x value is 0. So your y-intercept will always be represented by 0 comma some number, and that number is your y-intercept. So it could straight up say, hey, your y-intercept is this, or it could give you the point 02, and you have to know that the point 02 is a y-intercept. So when you're given that, you just go to that point and you count off the slope. Really easy, straightforward. The last one, point slope, that's when you're given a point, in this case x sub 1, y sub 1, and you're given a slope. And you plug that slope in right here. So this is the slope. That's m, like we've talked about. And then your point, your numbers from your point go right here and right there. So the other x and the y that are just by themselves, that is the actual x and y in the equation. So every equation has an x and a y, unless it's a vertical or horizontal line. But when you have the line like y equals 2x plus 7, you have an x and you have a y. So in order to get that equation, you have to have that normal x and y, whereas the x1 and the y1 is the actual point. Okay, so when you do point slope, don't get confused. This x and the y is going to stay there because it has to in order to have that equation. So let's just try some examples, try some problems. Once you do code problems, you'll get it. So we're going to find the equations of lines given different information. We're going to start off easy and get a little bit harder as we go. The first one, we're given m equals 1/2 and the y-intercept is 3. So this is the easiest one. This is going to be straight up slope-intercept form. So you're looking at y equals mx plus b, and you just plug your numbers in. So you have y equals m is 1/2, so that's the slope, x plus your y-intercept, which is b, plus 3. There's your answer. When you can find the slope and you can find the y-intercept that quick, then you're going to find your equation that quick. It's that easy. Number 2, we're given a point and we're given that the line has to be parallel to another line. This looks a little bit harder, but it's actually just as easy, because this point right here is our y-intercept. This is our b, and it equals -2. And then parallel to the line y equals 2x plus 5, we know that parallel lines have same slopes. So therefore, your slope is 2. So this is just, it's introduced in a different way, but it's actually giving you the exact same information. You just got to kind of look for it. So to make this line, I'm still going to use, y equals mx plus b. That's my slope-intercept form. And I'm just going to plug it in. Y equals, my slope is 2, so 2x, plus b. Well, my b is -2, so it's actually -2. Y equals 2x minus 2 is the equation of my line. Not too bad. Next, we're given a point and a slope. This is a little bit more difficult, but you still can just use the point-slope formula. So this, I'm going to write the point-slope formula. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. M times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. And this is actually a slope of negative 2/3. I don't know where my equal sign went. Actually, I don't need that equal sign. That's why. We'll put it in parentheses, that way you can see it. All right, so it's a slope of negative 2/3. So we got a point of 2, 3 and a slope of negative 2/3. So I'm going to use all this information. My point is 2, 3, so this is really my x sub 1 and my y sub 1. That's really what that is. And the slope is actually my m. So let's just plug all these numbers in. So y minus, let me write this y so you can actually, it looks like a y. Y minus y sub 1, which is 3, equals m, which is negative 2/3, times x minus x sub 1, which is 2. Alright, so now I'm just going to work this out just like a normal equation. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Let me write that in here. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And at the same time, I'm going to distribute this negative 2/3. So I'm doing 2 steps at once. If you're not comfortable doing 2 steps at once, that's okay. Just, make it 2 steps. So it's going to be y equals negative 2/3 x plus, because it's a negative times a negative, 4/3 plus my 3. And now I got to add these numbers together. So I have to do the common denominator here. This 3 becomes 9/3. Right? Do the common denominator and add fractions. So this is y equals negative 2/3 x plus 9/3. And that is my final answer. Just because it has fractions doesn't mean it's really that much more difficult. 9/3 is my y-intercept, and negative 2/3 is my slope. Usually you're going to end up in slope-intercept form because, like I said, it is the easiest to graph. And lastly, we have where we're just given 2 points. This is the hardest because you have to find all the information. So the first thing I have to find is the slope. I'm given a point, right? I'm actually given 2 points. So I'm going to label these x sub 1, x sub 2. I'm sorry, not x sub 2. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So I'm labeling these because I'm going to use them in my slope formula, which is m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And I'm just going to plug these numbers in. So y sub 2 is 12, y sub 1 is 7, so 12 minus 7 over y sub 2 is 4. X sub 2 is 4, x sub 1 is 2, so x minus 2. So my slope is 12 minus 7 is 5 over 4 minus 2, which is 2. So my slope is 5/2. So now that I have a slope, I can use either one of these points in the point slope formula to find out what my actual equation is. So I'm going to write that point slope formula. So y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. Alright, so let's just plug our numbers in. I guess since I'm using x sub 1 and y sub 1, I'll just use 2, 7 because I already had that labeled as x sub 1 and y sub 1. So y minus 7 equals my slope, which is 5/2, times x minus x sub 1, which is 2. And this actually works out really nice. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. So plus 7, plus 7. And I'm going to distribute this 5/2 to both of these. Okay, so this becomes y equals 5/2 times x is just 5/2 x. 5/2 times negative 2. These negative 2's will, or this 2 and this negative 2 will cancel. So I'm just going to be left with negative 5. So 5/2 times negative 2 is negative 5. And then I have that plus 7 at the end. So after I combine these two numbers, I get y equals 5/2 x plus 2. That is my final answer. And that's all the ways you're going to be given information to find a line without giving some kind of graph. Algebraically, this is all you can be given. You can be given 2 points, a point in the slope, or a specific point, and that is the y-intercept and the slope. And all of those ways you can find a line. So next we're going to talk about solving inequality, or I'm sorry, graphing inequalities. Graphing inequalities is really the exact same thing as graphing a line. So when you graph a line, you can either put it in slope-intercept form like we just did, plot the y-intercept, and then count off the slope. Or you can use standard form to find the intercepts, the x and y-intercept, and then use those 2 points to draw a line. There's multiple ways you can do it. Whichever way you want to do, go for it. But you graph inequalities the same way. So you're going to treat it like it's an equation and graph it like it's an equation. But you have to keep in mind that it's still an inequality. That means that if it is greater than or less than and not equal to, you're going to have a dashed line. That dashed line represents that you can't equal points on that line. Just like we had open circles on our number lines, dashed line is the same thing as an open circle. If it is equal to, like greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, then you're going to use a solid line because the points on that line are part of your inequality. And then on top of that, you're going to have to shade above or below the line depending on whether it's greater than or less than. If it's greater than, you shade above. If it's less than, you shade below. And that just makes sense. But if you're ever unsure, if the line kind of doesn't, if it's more straight up and down, if you have a really, really steep slope or a really shallow slope, then you can pick a test point. And if that test point works, you shade the side of the line that test point is on. If that test point doesn't work, you shade the side of the line. You shade the opposite side of the line. I always pick 0, 0 because it's easy to work with. You can pick whatever you want. So let's look at some examples, and this is really quick and easy. All right, so we're just going to graph this like it was a normal line, and then we're going to shade, and we're going to see what our answer looks like. So I'm going to get this into slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging here. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides, and I'll have negative y is greater than negative x plus 7. And then I want a positive y, so I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1. Okay, so remember when you multiply by a negative, that you have to flip the sign. So this becomes y is less than, because it was greater than, now I have to switch it, is less than negative x becomes positive x, positive 7 becomes negative 7. So there's my equation, or my inequality. So I'm going to graph this just like it's an equation, but I have to keep in mind that it's not equal to, so it's going to be a dashed line. So I'm going to go to negative 7, that's my intercept. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and I'm going to count off up 1 over 1. So up 1 over 1. Up 1 over 1 all the way up to, and I'll actually end up crossing at 7 here too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is going to be my line. So there is my line, and my inequality, y less than x minus 7. Now I have to decide which way to shade. So I'm going to shade below because it's less than. Less than means shade below. So shading below. And all these numbers, then it goes on and on in each direction. That line extends out to infinity. And it goes on and on in both directions. You can shade however much or however less you want to, just so you can get the point. But just to show you, if you weren't sure where to shade, you could pick a point. And like I said, I like to pick the point 0, 0. And I'll just plug that into my equation and see if it works. If it works, I should shade the side 0, 0 is on. If it doesn't work, I'll shade the other side. So let's just try it real quick. 0 is less than 0 minus 7. 0 is less than negative 7. 0 is not less than negative 7. 0 is actually greater than negative 7. So that does not work. Therefore, I should shade the other side, which I did. All right, so I want you all to give this one a shot. So pause the video right here, graph this one, and then come back in a couple minutes and watch it and see if you've got your answer correct. Alright, so you should have had the line graphed like this. It is less than or equal to, therefore you should have drawn a solid line. And after you solved, you got y less than or equal to negative x plus 8. That means my y-intercept is 8. So I went up to 8, all the way up here. And then I counted off down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, and so on and so forth, and got my slope. And then I just drew the line. And I picked the test point 0, 0 again, right there, to see whether it worked. So I picked 0, 0, and it said 0 plus 0 is less than or equal to 8. That's true. Therefore, I shade the side 0, 0 is on. Pretty simple. This will be your assignment. You can go ahead and get started working on that if you have your book. If not, I'll see you in class.